Hello and welcome to the World Wanderers podcast, a proud part of the Wander Barn Podcast Network.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Amanda.
And we're your hosts.
We're a traveling couple and digital nomads taking you on our adventures as we explore locations, destinations, and careers.
Enjoy the show. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the show. Today, we're excited to bring you an interview with longtime friend and friend of the podcast, recurring guest Nathan Aguilera from Foodie Flashbacker.
Yeah, and Nathan has been traveling the world full-time for 10 years, which is one of the reasons we were really excited to catch up with him. We are hitting his 10-year travel anniversary, so really fun to chat about that. And during the past 10 years, he's visited nearly 70 countries across 5 continents, all while running a successful online business, which Ryan mentioned, called Foodie Flashbacker. And he currently spends most of his time between Argentina and Mexico during the winters and travels around Europe in the summers. So at the time of recording, at this point of time, Nathan is fully nomadic. We were able to catch up with him in Brazil before he jet-setted off to South Africa, where he currently is. And I think he's coming back to North America or South America at some point soon. And we were really excited to chat with Nathan about what the last 10 years has looked like, what it's been like to build an online business. And he's also just started a new project called Gay Digital Nomads, which is a community for LGBTQ plus nomads and remote workers. So we're really excited to hear more about that, and you can learn more about how you can check that out and follow along and all that good stuff. So this episode of the podcast is jam-packed with goodness. It's really cool to hear from somebody who's just been traveling for so long while making money all over the world. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Nathan, welcome to the podcast today. We're really excited to have you here with us.
Thank you so much for having me back on.
Yeah, absolutely. And where in the world are you joining us from?
I am currently my last day in Florianopolis, Brazil.
Oh, amazing. That's a place that we went back in on our big backpacking trip in 2014 that we've wanted to go back ever since. I'm curious, what do you think about it?
And for me, it's like not love. Like I don't think I'll be rushing back here anytime soon.
Yeah, must be the same for us because it's been 10 years and we haven't gotten back. We did really enjoy it.
When the first week I was here, we came for a beach vacation, and then the weather was terrible. It was raining every day. So now it's sunny, it's nice out, it's beach weather. So that's made a big difference. But yeah, it's fine.
I remember we were kind of like grinding it out on like shitty buses for like a month in Brazil, and we got to Florianopolis, and we're like, we're in heaven. This is the most amazing place on earth.
I think it's just like a lot more chill than other places in Brazil. It feels like a little bit safer. And I remember we kept going to those like, what was it, like pay by kilo food places? This is like, you got to remember 10 years ago, we were like major backpackers. And so we just like stacked so much food in like our little boxes for a kilo, and it was so cheap to eat.
Those places are still popular. I was hanging out with my Brazilian friend in Sao Paulo, and that's where he wanted to go for lunch.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Well, I was just looking to see when we caught up with you in the podcast last, and it was almost exactly 2 years ago. It was like end of January 2022. We must have talked to you a little earlier than that because I would have been extremely pregnant with baby Lou. But you were on like month 91 of your 6-month trip. And so I'm curious, 2 years later, where are you at with this trip? Because you're still going strong.
This is month 120. This is my 10-year anniversary. February 2014, I left the States setting off on this 6-month journey I'm on.
That's incredible. And so maybe you can just give us, I know you go so many places, but just a high level overview of maybe like what the last 2 years have looked like. I think we know, but maybe catch listeners up on like what you've been up to specifically over the last 2 years. And then maybe we can go more into like the whole 10-year thing.
Well, the last couple of years, I mean, I've slowed down a lot. I mean, as you guys know, I've slowed down. I used to bounce around cities quite quickly, but now I'm doing 1, 2, 3 month stays. The past couple of years, I'm still going to Europe every summer, and largely the last couple of years in Mexico and Argentina when I'm not in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like this was your second winter in Argentina, right?
second winter in Argentina, and I already booked my same apartment that I just left to come back to in December of this, at the end of this year. So it'll be 3 consecutive winters.
Nice. That's awesome. That's amazing to hear. And so any plans of like slowing down, or what does it look like for you being like 10 years on the road?
I keep saying I'm going to slow down, and then I keep making other plans. Yeah, I mean, I think definitely I'm kind of slow. I'm slowing down a bit. I've been talking more and more about doing maybe 4 3 month around the world stays, like maybe some Mexico, some Argentina, some Europe, some Asia, like blocking out into 4 3 month segments is kind of what I'm aiming towards at the moment.
That sounds pretty cool. I like that Mexico's in there because that's where we are at the moment. So I like that.
You guys, and you also know my mom's retired in Mexico. So, of course, I want to get some mom time in every year.
Yeah, it's like Amanda and Ryan and then mom next, of course.
And my mom might even be living in you guys' the same city. So that would be very convenient.
That would be super convenient for you. Then we know we'll like for sure see you, at least for as long as we're living here.
Yeah. And so, Nathan, what's it kind of feel like coming up, kind of realizing like, hey, 10 years ago, I set out on this big adventure. You've, really like lived and been all over the world. What are kind of the vibes as you approach 10 years?
Wow. I mean, in some ways, it feels like it's not been 10 years. It feels like it's gone by pretty quickly. And I've been so many places and I've seen so many things, but there's so many places that I still want to go and so many places that I haven't been. And then in other ways, I'm like, this is like almost a quarter of my life that I've been at this. And that feels pretty crazy. It's a complete decade that I've been, on the road, moving, living full time on the go. So it's pretty, I don't know. I just feel like time is kind of a weird thing. Part of it's flown by, but then in another measure, it's like a quarter of my life I've been doing this.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about. I feel like we were having this, like, because I was mentioning that backpacking trip we took in South America, and that was like, we were on that 10 years ago. And I feel like that's been really surreal, I think, at least for me to think about, like how much has happened in that time. So I'm curious for you, if you look back on like yourself in, February of 2014, like what have been some of the major, I guess, like life changes, life shifts that have kind of happened through this period and through your travels?
Well, I mean, when I left, I was supposed to be on a 6 month trip, and I was going to sort out whether I wanted to go to law school or not. So this whole thing was like a little bit of a figure out yourself, figure out your life. So I never made it to law school. One of the big things is I figured out I don't want to be an attorney. I think now I really prioritize. I don't know that I can ever go work for anyone else again. I found out that I need to be working for myself. I need to be doing my own thing. For better or for worse, where there have been lots of ups and downs running my own business. Running your own business on the road is super challenging. But I have figured out, one of the big things is, uh, I think I'm more, I don't know how to phrase it. Not that I don't know what the word is, more entrepreneurial than I thought I am, more ambitious than I thought I might be. I thought my life path was always going to be, working for someone else, working in an office, punching a time clock, getting 2 weeks of vacation per year. And I've definitely sorted out that that's not my life path.
Yeah, that's a really cool realization to have, especially like, I guess not too like quote unquote, like late in life. Like it's not like you were nearing retirement and then you're like, oh, I actually don't want to do this anymore. It's like you were able to figure that out, I guess, in your early 30s.
Yeah, early 30s. It's definitely not the career path I thought I was going to be on, but I don't know that I could ever go work for someone else ever again. I think I would be a terrible employee at this point.
You're like, I actually take 2.5 hour lunches and I fly on Fridays. So,
And I need all summer off to go be homeless in Europe.
yeah, maybe not the best for working for somebody else. But I think that's really cool that you've been able to like go out. I'm assuming, well, maybe you can tell us in 2014, did you just have like 6 months of savings that you were kind of like planning to use on this trip, or like what did that look like for you at that point?
I actually didn't work the first 2 years. So I've been working on the road for 8 years. The first 2 years, I had just savings and investments, and I was able to make it work. I sold everything in my house. I sold my car. At one point, I was working, 3 or 4 jobs in Oklahoma City, saving up money for this. So I had a pretty decent little nest egg when I left, and I was able to make that stretch for 2 years. And then I was running out of money. And also a big thing, after 2 years on the road, I was feeling like I was traveling with no purpose.
Mm.
And it can be fun, it can be fun, but you need something to do on the road. It can't be like a vacation every day for 10 years or something like this. I needed a goal, I needed a purpose, I needed something to do. So that's why I started the website.
Yeah, and I know on one of our previous episodes, we talked through quite a bit about the website, but how has it kind of evolved from when you started to what you're focused on now?
Well, when I started, I was like a one-man team. It was just me trying to do everything. And I think one of the things in this business that's very frustrating for me that, you have to be good at so many things. Social media, writing, editing, marketing, sales funnels, all these things. You need to be good at all of these things, or you need to outsource and you need to work with people who are better at these things than you are. So, I don't know when we talked last if I had a team or how big my team was, but since then, it's grown. We have probably about 5 people working on the site full time in this moment, and a lot of freelance people and one off and freelance writers and things like this. So the business has grown. Um, it's not just me trying to do everything anymore, which I'm quite appreciative of and grateful for because it was impossible. It was too much for one person to take on.
Yeah, I think especially like to grow as well, because I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, but when you started, you were really focusing on like creating kind of like listicles about places to like eat and restaurants and that type of thing with places you were going pretty specifically, right?
Yeah, it was just me going to a city and then writing about, my top 10 favorite restaurants in Chiang Mai, Thailand or something. So it was pretty limited about how much content I could create by myself because it was just me writing about my own travels. But now we're hiring freelance writers. We have a bunch of American writers. We have some international writers. So, it's not, I guess that would be another big change is I don't even really consider the site a blog anymore. I think a blog is kind of one person's narrative or one person's firsthand travel stories. It's really grown into more of a travel resource. I don't even do hardly any of the writing on the site anymore. So you won't find much from my perspective on the site.
Yeah, you're like fully CEO now.
Yeah, I'm actually think I'm going to write, just because I'm so obsessed with Buenos Aires, I think I'm going to write my Buenos Aires article. It's going to be kind of like my love letter to the city.
That's nice. I like that.
Awesome. Well, we definitely need to talk about Buenos Aires food and steaks at some point in this conversation. But I'm kind of curious for you now, kind of today, when you're going somewhere new. So Foodie Flashpacker is an awesome resource for people going on their travels, finding restaurants to eat at. For you personally, when you're going somewhere new, how do you kind of like plan out the places you want to eat, the experiences you want to have, all that type of stuff?
Well, places I want to eat, a lot of it I'll just ask friends that have been there, or I'll start Googling, looking for blog names that I recognize that I know and trust. I'll start going off of their recommendations. A lot of time is just going over Google Maps, just kind of like, I'll find where my Airbnb is going to be in that city, and I'll get on Google Maps and just start searching restaurants around there. Things to do. Same thing, what people have recommended to me now, usually before I go somewhere on social media, I'll say, I have a trip to Buenos Aires coming up. I just booked Buenos Aires. If anyone has any restaurant recommendations or things to see and do, and, I'm pretty fortunate. People usually jump in and give me a lot of great suggestions that I'm able to use as kind of like uh, base level planning.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I feel like too, we're just starting to release our Argentina content now, but we were just in Bariloche together. So by the time this episode's out, people will have heard that. And spoiler alert, we had terrible weather while we were there. And I was so grateful that you had a list of restaurants, because I think if we hadn't had like some good food to look forward to, our trip could have been a little bit of a bummer.
I don't even think we needed that whole list. We just kind of ended up going to the same place quite a few times.
Yeah. Empanadas for lunch.
We had our regulars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Steakhouse for dinner.
I mean, Bariloche is very different from a city than like Buenos Aires or Mexico City or something, where when you eat the same thing over and over, you're really missing out on other places. I feel like Bariloche is like small. I feel like we hit a good number of restaurants there.
We found some good places.
Yeah, for sure. You'll have to put together a blog post on that maybe too. Share all the goodness.
If it hasn't been published already, it's in production.
Nice. That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, I think we should talk a little bit about Argentina, because I know we really enjoyed our time there. We've got some content coming out around it. Was last year, not this previous, like a couple months ago last year, but the year before that, was that the first time you'd ever been?
First time, yeah. First time I'd gone to Argentina was for Christmas of last year.
And so at that point, you probably would have gone to like 60, 70 plus countries all over the world. What were kind of like, I guess, why hadn't you got to Argentina before, and what were your kind of first impressions when you did get there?
Well, I mean, it is very far, and flights are expensive. It's kind of it's far to get to, and very rarely do you see great prices on flights to get there. But I'd heard a lot of great things about it for years. Everyone had said, it's very very European part of Latin America. And when I went, I just thought it's gorgeous. I've heard a lot about its safety. I don't ever really feel unsafe in the city. It has Mexico City vibes to me, or Mexico City has or Buenos Aires vibes. I don't know which one, but the city's interesting. It's exciting. It's big. There's always something to do. And from a food and wine perspective, you could never finish your list of places, like recommendations and suggestions. I've spent probably 5 months collectively in Buenos Aires now, and I still have a massive list of places I haven't visited yet.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I feel like we hadn't been there for, I guess, like 9-ish years by the time we went. And I was like, man, this city is just, I forgot how great it was because it'd been so long since we had been there. And I think also when we were there, it was just like a very, like, I guess, unique time in Argentina's history to be there because of the like inflation with the dollar and just being able to super affordable if you can live off USD. I feel like it was just like a very interesting time to be there as like a tourist.
Yeah, of course, the value for money is insane as well. But I've told people it's not that it's the cheapest destination in the world. You can go to Thailand and you live on like dollar pad thai, or be in Mexico and live on $2 street tacos. But for me, what I love about Buenos Aires is that you're able to have very high-end experiences for much more affordable than you would in a lot of other places around the world. And, the example I keep giving people, we did an 8-course tasting menu with wine pairings, and it was $50 American dollars.
Wow, that's insane.
So I think that's when, yes, it's affordable. Sadly for Argentinian people, it's because they're having like record inflation, things like this. But, you can go more affordable places. It's not that it's the cheapest country in the world, but I think for me, it's one of the better value countries in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That's kind of what we were talking about as we were doing our Argentina content. And it's a complicated situation feeling wise, because obviously going somewhere where your money goes further as, American like you are, Canadian like us, is great. But then you also think like, how does this affect the local people? And, obviously, the insane inflation is not super ideal for the local people. But it seems like things have shifted a little bit. I guess you were just there, so you'd know a little bit more than us since you were there quite a bit longer than us. But seems like maybe the inflation's shifting a tiny little bit heading into this year.
Yeah, and it's also interesting when you ask, what had taken me so long to get down there, because when you hear about, record inflation and, how bad people have it, you think it's going to be like Venezuela or something, and you get down there and it's not great for the people, and a lot of people are in very bad situations or whatever, but it's not some, war zone or something like they would have you believe. It's a gorgeous city, and the people there are in a not great situation, but they seem to be really trying to, make the best of it and work with what they've got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were talking about this because I think, like you mentioned, Buenos Aires says like really like Mexico City vibes, or vice versa, however you want to say that. But I actually think Mexico City has I think we saw like less, people living on the street. I think there was like less like garbage. I feel like Buenos Aires felt like kind of a cleaner, almost like nicer version of Mexico City in some ways. And I say this with like absolute love in my heart for Mexico City, because everyone listening should know that I adore Mexico City. So no hate on that city. But I think it's really interesting, like you said, when you hear like, 180% inflation and economic crisis, you do think that things are going to be like pretty bad when you're there. And I think we never really like experienced that kind of from a tourist side anywhere that we were in Argentina during this trip, which was really interesting. I mean, I honestly had a little bit of like, I was a bit like, is this a safe place to travel with our toddler? Because I feel like that's something I'm very conscious about with Lou now, is like, we're not just going to go somewhere because we want to go somewhere. We need to think about her as well. And I never felt unsafe with her at all. So it is like a very interesting thing, and hopefully something people just keep in mind if they're like reading, the news highlights that say those kind of scary words like economic crisis and stuff like that, because yeah, we had a fantastic time.
Yeah, I heard a lot about, I've not heard a lot about violent crime there. The most I heard is, pickpocketing and snatch and grab for phones and things like that. But I'm getting ready to go next week to South Africa, and I've been warned so many times about Cape Town, and I'm really hoping that I get there and find kind of a similar experience to like we did in Buenos Aires, where it's not as bad as people would have you believe, because people have kind of got me a little nervous about Cape Town.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really curious, and I, obviously hope that your experience is positive, but I'm really curious to hear what you think and how you like it and stuff, because it's a city that's certainly on my list. But again, because of the things that people say, I'm like, don't know if that's the best place to go with a toddler right now. So you'll have to let us know, because I think it's on our radar, but not somewhere we've actually planned to go.
Well, I have a stopover in Sao Paulo on the way to Cape Town, and Sao Paulo definitely to me is I felt I felt it more than I do in a lot of cities, that Sao Paulo can be a little bit sketchy in some areas. And I don't know if you saw a friend of mine, she got robbed twice in 24 hours when we were there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was like, it's crazy, because when we were in Brazil, like 10 years ago, it was, everyone said, take your jewelry off, and, people will like rip necklaces off, and people will snatch phones out of your hands. And we never had any issues at all. I mean, I guess we were pretty cautious, but not terribly cautious. I don't think, like, we were still going out in the evenings, and we were there for Carnival, so we were partying and stuff. We didn't have any issues. And yeah, I saw that through, same friend. And I was like, oh man, that's just like so scary. It just gives you such bad vibes when that's like the start of your trip somewhere.
It's a big reason we came down to Florianopolis as well. Even though I said, like, I like Florianopolis, I'm not in love with it. It does feel very safe down here.
Yeah.
It's like a beach town. Yeah, everyone's just kind of running around in flip-flops and bathing suits. It's super chill. So, it was a big reason. We had 2 weeks that we needed to work with down here, and we decided to leave Sao Paulo and go somewhere that felt a bit safer.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Although, did you eat like your body weight in sushi while you were in Sao Paulo?
I did my best. Yeah, I think we did a pretty big. We made a big dent in their sushi supply for sure, and we have 2 nights there on the way back out.
Nice. So you've got more opportunities for more sushi. I'm jealous.
They do have good Asian food there. I'll give them that. And surprisingly good, we found a really great Brazilian Oaxacan fusion restaurant.
Whoa.
That's cool.
What is Brazilian Oaxacan fusion? Like, what does that entail?
What were we having? We were having some kind of Oaxacan dishes that they had used some Brazilian spices on, and I didn't really see a lot of Brazilian cooking techniques, but they, wow, I'd have to remember exactly what dishes we had, but I think it was mostly to do with like spices and things. They'd used Brazilian spices.
Yeah, what have you thought overall of Sao Paulo, Florianopolis, just being in Brazil, and especially like compared to Argentina? What have you thought of it from like a travel perspective?
It's so difficult for me because I'm so obsessed with Argentina right now. I want to give this place, a fair chance. And we were talking about it offline. We haven't talked about it here. I'm not even supposed to be in Brazil right now. We're supposed to be in South Africa. So we had a bit of a travel flub, a big mess up. And I think I just came in here kind of with a bad attitude, but Brazil is fun. I mean, of all the places I've been in Brazil, Florianopolis and Iguazu are my 2 favorites. Rio and Sao Paulo, I both felt like you needed to have your guard up at all time. And for me, it's a bit difficult to enjoy myself when I'm in places where I'm constantly being warned about how much danger I'm in. So if I were going to come back to Brazil, it would probably be Florianopolis. I like it down here. The beaches are really nice. There's some good seafood, really chill vibe. It's really fun on the weekends when we went out for the weekends. Tons of locals, outside playing volleyball, eating seafood on the beach. It's a good vibe. I probably would steer clear of Sao Paulo in the future. Carnival, I would go to. My Brazilian friends tell me it's more interesting outside of Rio and less dangerous outside of Rio. But I don't want to scare anyone off on Brazil, and I don't want to. I don't want to seem like I'm talking bad about it. Like everyone, it is cool. It's fun. Everyone should come, especially Florianopolis. And Iguazu is one of the most stunning places I've seen in all my travels. It's amazing.
Yeah. Iguazu still is like probably the most spectacular waterfalls I've ever seen in my life. It's just. Yeah, just incredible. I would certainly go back there again.
And the Brazilian side was nicer than the Argentinian side, so they've got that.
Yeah, they got the better views.
Yeah, so we put together a little, we don't have to do it as like a speed round or anything, but we put together a little bit of a list of things to ask you about as sort of highlights over the 10 years, if you're up for it.
Of course.
Okay, so the first one is, I think this one's just impossible, but you can blame Ryan for that. Best meal you've had in the last 10 years. Go.
The best one singular meal.
Yeah. Choose one meal in the last 10 years.
Wow. I think I was in Florence one time and I had this wild boar ragu. And so anytime anyone asks me about my best meal, that's usually the one that comes to mind. It's like wild boar ragu, and the sauce was cooked almost more like a gravy. And I remember when they brought me this big plate of pasta, and they brought me, those kind of flat, skinny Italian breadsticks that go with it. And I was like, oh, I don't need pasta and breadsticks. I was like, that's a lot. And then by the end, I was like scraping the sauce off the plate with those breadsticks. So I think if I had to think of one out of, having had a lot of really great meals, it's wild boar ragu in Florence.
Okay, nice.
That makes sense.
I'm impressed that you were able to pick that quickly, honestly.
What about worst meal? Does one come to mind?
Oh, worst meal. I think when people know that you write about food, sometimes they think you want to do like Fear Factor edition, where you want to eat like crazy bugs and stuff. And that's never been I don't want to eat cockroaches. I'll tell you the one thing I've ever refused to eat, and I felt very, you want to go somewhere and you don't want to be culturally insensitive and you don't want to come off as like, a bad Western person, whatever, but that balut in Philippines. Have you had this?
No,
we both refused to eat it while we were there, I think.
We both politely declined.
Yeah, I politely declined as well. I was hanging out with some locals and they were offering to buy it for us. We were hanging out on the beach and I was like, no, thank you very much. But, that's something I don't want to try. I've heard it's actually delicious. Our mutual friend Grayson I'm traveling with, he really likes it, but it's just something I didn't care to try.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay, what about, and maybe this is more relevant to the places you've stayed longer term, kind of more like, living in, but where do you feel like is like you've had the best quality of life?
Oh, Mexico City, I think has to be way high up there. Mexico City is kind of the bar that I'm comparing a lot of other cities to. Early days of my website, when I was kind of bootstrapping it and trying to start out, I think Chiang Mai, Thailand was a perfect place to bootstrap a new business. Most recently, I don't know what their winters are like. I've never been there for the winter, but I do love Buenos Aires right now. It's a favorite of mine, and I think I could live in Madrid. I love the life in Madrid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are some great choices.
Yeah. All right.
Just Spain overall, just anywhere in Spain.
Malaga?
Most places in Spain. Most everywhere in Spain. Malaga's nice to visit. I don't think I could live there.
Shout out to you, Tim.
Yeah, TOTM.
Next one. So imagine you're going to get, remember like Men in Black? They had those scanners and they just like flash people, delete your memories. So you're going to get memory washed for the past 10 years, but you get to keep one travel experience as a memory. Which memory would you keep?
Oh, wow. I mean, clearly my trip with you guys. um, is that
Including both
pandering?
snowfalls.
Yeah, including getting started. I would say very recently we just did you guys know Brock, my best friend. We did his 40th birthday trip. We did the Amalfi Coast of Italy. And I just don't know how that trip could have gone any better. And it was a group trip, which I don't always love. There's too many moving parts. And, inevitably there's going to be someone that's, a Karen or difficult to please. We had none of that on this trip. Like the trip was amazing from start to finish. It was so much fun. That part of Italy, a lot of people kind of dump on it because it is so touristic. And I mean, it is very touristic, but for a reason. It's stunning. We had amazing meals. We had beautiful days. We had great wine. I think probably that would be one.
Nice. Yeah, that's an awesome one. I was kind of wondering if you might pick that one, at least of recent ones. Okay, if for the rest of your life somebody said you can only stay in one continent, like can't go to any other continent until the day that you die, which one would you stay in?
Wow. That's
a hard question, isn't it?
if we say, yeah, because I mean, who's counting the continents? Is it American style where North and South are two different continents, or are we counting the Americas as one continent?
Let's put them together for this. I think to compete with Europe, let's consider the Americas one thing.
Okay, I think I would probably have to, in this moment, this moment of my life, if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, it would have been Asia. But I think in this moment of my life, it would be the Americas because Buenos Aires and Mexico City, it has Mexico, and then, of course, still access to United States where my friends and family are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I feel like North America would probably be mine.
Yeah, Asia would be cool. There's so much stuff in Asia.
So many countries.
You could even do
great food.
Istanbul, Tokyo, Thailand.
Still haven't been to Japan.
Moscow.
I was going to say a life without ever going to Japan again. What would I do? You need to go.
It's when you guys asked me earlier, like, are you still thinking of still full steam ahead or slowing down or whatever? Every time I think about slowing down and like signing a lease, it's like, oh, but you still haven't been to Japan. Like, I feel like Japan is hanging over me.
Once you go to Japan, then you can sign a lease and you can like get a dog or something.
Yeah, but I mean, when I mentioned him earlier, our mutual friend Grayson, he says, you're just moving the goalpost because after Japan, it's going to be something else. You're going to come up with another reason to not want to settle down. Because
I mean, there's always like something else to see, right? Like you'll discover another country that other people talk about and that has a great food scene and stuff. So I feel like Grayson's not wrong.
There's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of places I still want to go, but I feel like Japan is a huge number one, and then behind it, there's distant number twos for other places. South Korea, I'm dying to get to.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, South Korea is awesome.
Awesome. How about the sketchiest but still fun place, or the most sketchy but still fun place?
Sketchiest but still fun. The Chungking Mansions in Hong Kong.
That's a great answer.
Have you guys been?
We've
Have you been?
partaken from the outside, not the inside.
Okay, yeah, the murder capital of Hong Kong, where I stayed not once but twice.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. I think Vang Vieng in Laos comes to mind for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was another one. That was another one I thought of.
Yeah. We went like back in the like tubing days too. Were you there when they were doing the tubing still?
I was there when they were still trying to make the tubing happen after everyone had known the tubing was no longer happening.
Okay, that was an interesting time.
Yeah, they had kind of a watered down version of it for the people that showed up still hoping it might be a thing.
Okay, well, we went when it was like fully
the death
going.
Slide, bacterial infections.
I feel like I'm really glad we went in our like early 20s, and I feel like if I went probably at any other chapter of life, I just would have been disgusted.
Yeah, we just floated down the river and they kind of like threw us beers onto our floaty. It wasn't anything that wild.
Okay. All right. Next question is easiest place to connect with locals.
Wow, easiest place to connect with locals. I really like, I mean, and I'm fully aware that it has a lot to do with everyone speaking English, but I find Filipino people so nice.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys been to the Philippines? Yeah, I know you guys have been. We've been there at the same time. I thought Philip,
Yeah, yeah. But that's the only time we've been, though. So I feel like we need to go and explore a little bit more.
they were super nice. They were fun. I remember I didn't love Manila the first time I was there. It was just this crazy big city. And then the second time I was there, a bunch of local people took me out to like a roast pig and craft beer festival. And everyone was good. Everyone was a fun time. But other than that, I'm partial to Mexico, being half Mexican myself. I think right now I kind of just really connect with Latino culture. And
Hmm.
I find myself more and more spending time around like Latino culture.
Yeah, for sure. Mexico definitely comes to mind for me as well. I feel like every year we've been here, it's like somebody invites us to like their family's house for Christmas. Like it's just, I don't know, people here are so welcoming.
I agree. I'm partial.
Of course. All right, next
I'm
question.
biased.
Yeah, next question is best dating scene.
Well, I mean, there's a reason I love Buenos Aires so much right now. Buenos Aires is a super fun city. Mexico City is a super fun. Madrid, kind of all of the places I earlier named as places. I'll tell you the one that surprised me, the one that I was incredibly fun for dating that I had not heard anything about before I got there was Lima, Peru.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know nothing about their dating scene, so that's cool to hear.
Yeah, Lima, Peru. I was pretty blown away by that because I hadn't heard anything, good, bad, or indifferent. I hadn't heard anything about that, but yeah, Lima impressed me.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome.
What about best vacation destination?
Hmm. I Bali. I mean, I think we're organizing the same group that I mentioned earlier that we were on the Amalfi Coast trip with. We're organizing a Bali trip is amazing. Anywhere Thailand, Bali, Philippines, some of these like very tropical white sand beaches, turquoise water, palm trees. If that's your style of vacation, I think Southeast Asia is hard to beat.
Yeah, that's I was thinking Europe as well. That was the other thing that came to mind. Like Croatia, Italy. I know we talked about Italy, those places as well.
Yeah, I love these places for different reasons. Like a lot of Europe has like pebble beaches, and like even I spent my birthday trip doing like a Croatia island hopping thing, and a lot of the times the water was quite cold. So I love Europe and I spend a lot of time there, but for different reasons. They have some nice beaches, but I think the beaches in Southeast Asia are hard to beat.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think that concludes
Do you have any other ones off the top of your head?
off the top of my head. Um,
What about the worst airline or sketchiest flight experience?
Oh, Yeti Airways in in Nepal.
Shocking.
Yeah, and I didn't even have to think about that one. That was like seared in my mind. I remember we were standing in line to get on that flight, and we were Googling like Yeti Airways or whatever, and we noticed that it had been like previously blacklisted from flying. And we asked our guides, we're like, whoa. This says like Yeti Airways is previously blacklisted. He goes, "Oh yeah, but it's okay. They're back on the list now. It's not a problem. Some of these places never even get on the list to be blacklisted."
Oh my God. So sketchy.
The whole thing was so sketchy. The I remember the flight attendant. They kept all of the drinks in like those metal office like filing cabinets, like the four-drawer filing cabinets.
Yeah.
They had one of those like bungee corded to the walls, and once the plane took off, they took the bungee cord and like opened the drawers or the metal filing cabinets, and they just came down the aisle with like a 2 liter of Coke under one arm and a 2 liter of Sprite under the other arm. The whole thing. It's one of the only time, I think it might be the only time I've applauded when the plane landed.
Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, just because we didn't know. It was a 50-50 crapshoot.
Their frequent flyer is if you survive 10 flights, you get an 11th free.
Oh my God.
I don't know how to roll the dice on that place 10 times.
Yeah, that sounds like, put that in my memory as a place, or in my mind as a airline not to fly with.
I remember we took a flight from
Yeah,
Hanoi to Luang Prabang in Laos in like 2011. And there was like no safety announcements. The tray in front of us didn't go up. It just like fell down and would stay down. And it was like a tiny little plane. I remember thinking like, oh, this would be like a good plane you'd see in like a documentary about 21-year-old backpackers dying.
I kind of
remember one time
forgot about that, honestly.
I remember one time in Vietnam when I was like kind of a novice scuba diver and I was going to go scuba diving and I got all like kitted up and everything. I was by myself. There's no one else. And they were saying like, do you want a dive master to go down with you? And I was like, yeah, that'd be great. They're just going to send me, they're just going to send me down with like a tank full of air and their best wishes.
Like, we'll be here later. Have fun.
Yeah, they're like, you want someone to go with you?
That's hilarious. Okay, that gives me one more question to add to this list. Where's the best place that you've scuba dived? Because I think you've scuba dived in quite a few places.
Yeah, that's another easy one. That would be the Komodo National Park in Indonesia.
Ooh.
And before that, we had done Sipadan diving, which is kind of regularly voted #1 best diving in the world, and it was amazing. It was, I can see why it makes #1, but we all were kind of blown away by Komodo National Park. Best diving I've personally ever done.
Amazing. That sounds awesome. Yeah, I remember when we were in Asia last, so 2016, 2017, we were trying to see if we could like squeeze in getting over to Sipadan to do that, but it just didn't end up working out. But now, yeah, Komodo National Park sounds really, really amazing. I feel like just in general, that sounds like a really cool place to go. And then the scuba diving, obviously being great is a bonus.
Sipadan is amazing because I stayed. It's the only time I've ever done this. It's a repurposed oil rig. It used to be like an offshore oil rig, and they turned it into a dive platform. So I like slept for a week on this like abandoned oil rig or something, and we went diving off of it every day. That was cooler than a lot of the dives we did in Sipadan just for that experience. And I guess at one point, like pirates had come on board the platform. So every night we had like the Malaysian military comes. They entered with like big guns and they slept overnight on there to make sure pirates didn't come on board. It was pretty crazy.
Oh wow, that's intense. That's quite the experience. Well, I think that concludes our list. Did you have any other questions?
No, yeah, I think that's a good speed round.
Yeah, well, thanks for participating with that, Nathan. I want to talk about the new project that you're working on, but I think maybe before we get there, I'm just quickly curious, like what it's like to, run a website / blog in 2024, because I feel like this industry's just gone through maybe like a bit of a roller coaster ride since you started. Like, I feel like there's been kind of the glory days of making lots of money. And then obviously the pandemic was challenging and it seems like things came back around and, there's ups and downs based on quarters and all these things. So anyways, I'm curious, you can tell us, since this is kind of your livelihood, like what's it like to be the owner and founder of a website these days, like a profitable website?
It's definitely difficult in this moment. And when you say like, glory days and then pandemic, mine was actually my best ever came after the pandemic. I think there was a big surge of people that were ready to start traveling as soon as they could. So my best numbers came after the pandemic. And then it's just so volatile right now with Google constantly changing the algorithm. In this moment, yeah, we're pretty down and it's pretty frustrating. But, we've been down before. I'm hoping that things are going to rebound quickly. And that's why you mentioned the new project earlier. That's why I've started this new project that we can talk about. But, Yeah, in this moment, it's pretty difficult. It's frustrating, but like I said earlier, it's this or maybe go work for someone else, which I don't want to do. So we're just figuring out how to make this work, how to pivot and work with what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that things are down, but I feel like, as with everything, I feel like it kind of cycles around. So hopefully that's the case with kind of the website industry as well. But yeah, tell us about what you're working on. Tell us about this new project you've got going on.
So we just launched, the website just went live a week ago for gay digital nomads. We're trying to form a community for gay LGBTQ plus remote workers around the world.
Nice. That's awesome. I want to hear more about like what that entails and, all that type of thing, but maybe you can just tell us quickly, like what the website is where people can go to find that.
Gaydigitalnomads.com. That's the website and the Instagram. You can find us on both places at Gay Digital Nomads.
Amazing. And kind of if somebody's like, you know, I guess like LGBTQ plus and they are interested in becoming a nomad or they are a nomad and looking for more, similar like-minded people, like what is your kind of plan with the community to kind of support them, and what are you kind of building out for the community?
Yeah, exactly as you said. It's either resources for people that are current LGBTQ remote workers or digital nomads. So we're going to have things, city guides, it's broadly a lot of the considerations are the same for any digital nomad, but I think especially with LGBTQ people, we have an additional concern for things like safety that a lot of other digital nomads may not have to consider. So we're going to build out some city guides and some resources. And for anyone that's considering becoming a digital nomad, how to become a digital nomad, what kind of jobs you should be looking for, things you could do to sustain yourself while traveling full time. And we're hoping very soon to start running some retreats, some masterminds, maybe a conference at some point. I think the first thing we're going to try and get off the ground will be our retreats.
Nice. Amazing. Any potential locations that you have that are top of mind for you? Some of the cities you already mentioned, maybe?
I think the two places right now where I feel like I could deliver the most value, probably the three places would either be Merida, Mexico, Buenos Aires, Argentina, or Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, just because I've spent so much time in all three of these places that I feel like I could really over deliver on an experience that I sell people.
Nice. That's amazing. Well, you'll definitely have to keep us posted on when like all of that info is live, and when you've got retreats, we'll be happy to share around with our community. But I think that's really exciting. I think it's great for people to like have this community. I think there's always like, obviously every single person has like sort of a different demographic, different likes and interests. And I feel like it's always nice to connect with people who are like, you just know you have something in common with them outside of maybe like just being in the same place or wanting to travel or something like that. So I think that's really cool. Plus, it is interesting, especially being, I think, in a heterosexual relationship, sometimes you don't realize that there's a lot of places around the world where it's still illegal, which I don't know how you feel about like traveling to those places, but I know we've got a couple of gay friends who are like, I don't want to go somewhere where it's like illegal to be me. Like that just doesn't feel good. So definitely, good for people to know what places are like safest for them and where they're most welcomed and that type of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you hit on both things when you say illegal, but also most welcome. Because I think some of the I hadn't realized until we started putting together our articles. A lot of things we're focusing on right now are typical digital nomad concerns. Affordability, Wi-Fi, and things like this. But we're also factoring in safety for LGBTQ people and some places that I love, Bali, Indonesia is actually, they have some pretty anti-discriminatory gay laws on their books, but Bali is quite welcoming. Thailand, I think, is, one of the most gay-friendly places in the world, and they actually don't have gay marriage. They're very accepting as a culture and as a people. They're very welcoming, but, the laws on the books aren't as gay-friendly as I thought they might be.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad that you can provide those resources to people because I feel like there is like, maybe if somebody's never been to Thailand, maybe they're planning, a trip there, maybe they're turned off by the fact or assume that people are like, not going to be very welcoming because it's not legal to be married there. But, your experience has actually been that they are a very welcoming people. So it's a reminder that like people aren't always, they're like governments and regulations and vice versa.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. Is there anything else you want to share with us about that project? Anything else you want listeners to know about that with where you're at with it right now?
Well, like I said, the website just went live. We're publishing a lot of content right now. We have a big content plan. So if this is something that anyone's interested in, go jump on the mailing list to stay informed.
Awesome. Very cool. And I'm assuming that's just access on the website.
Yeah. If you go to gatedigitalnomads.com or on our Instagram, you can find the mailing list on either one. And that's where, as we roll out retreats or conferences or masterminds or anything like this, we'll be announcing all of those on the mailing list.
Very cool. We will make sure there's links to all of that in the show notes. And where else can people connect with you, Nathan? Where can they find you, follow along with your travels, your food experiences, all that good stuff?
Foodie Flashback. I'm most active on Instagram. Foodie Flashbacker on Instagram. And of course, like I said earlier, the site is less of a blog. Foodieflashbacker.com is more of a travel resource. But to follow along with my personal travels, it'd be Instagram is where I'm most active.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say that if you guys, anyone out there listening needs like food recommendations or restaurant recommendations for a city that you're going to, I feel like my first usual action is to see if you have a post on it, because there's always great recommendations on there. So we'll make sure there's a link for that as well.
Yeah, thank you. And the Buenos Aires one should be coming out in the next couple of weeks, and that one's going to be a great resource. These are my favorites of the favorites of the favorites. I had to whittle it down because there's so many places I love there, but I didn't think anyone wanted like my top 74 restaurants in Buenos Aires. So I'm trying to whittle this down to the best of the best of the best.
Amazing. Well, I know you gave us pretty much all the places that we ate while we were there and everything was delicious. So I'm sure that that'll be a great resource.
Yeah. And it should be out.
King 10 for the win.
Yeah.
We'll add a link to it to the show notes for this episode, because this episode's going to come out probably in a month or so. Hey.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then that post should be live by then as well.
Perfect. Well, Nathan, thanks so much for your time. It's been awesome catching up.
No, thanks for having me on. Well, this is time number 3, right? Third time?
Yeah. Third time's a charm.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back on.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you want more, make sure to check out the World Wanderers Insider, available on Patreon at patreon.com/theworldwanderers.
For show notes, head over to theworldwanderers.com. Find us on social media at The World Wanderers Podcast and join the private Facebook community at World Wanderers, a community for travelers.
You can always get in touch with us at info@theworldwanderers.com. And if you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. It really helps us find new listeners.
See you next time.